If people have any issues, let me know. But this is a hopefully concise explanation of how IPS works. Um, okay, when you look at my, I don't know if you can see my mouse, you probably can't, but when you look at where it says live, red, damage multiplier hit, damage max, combo stage, the main thing you want to be looking at as far as IPS goes is combo stage. And you also, for you to see this, you need to have attack data as advanced, so you can see the buttons you use for IPS. It makes everything a lot easier, and so you can see the frame rate at the top. It's a really useful thing. So I have my save state. IPS is the simplest way to think about it is don't start a chain with something you've already hit. It gets a little bit more complicated than that, but basically, IPS starts tracking you once you've done your first launch. For Filia, that is standing heavy punch. So now after that, you hit standing heavy punch. You do combo, and it ends and stuff. Do that. I can't really up this, so I'll just, maybe this is a little bit more useful. I don't quite know. Okay, so IPS has 5 stages, as Tomo kind of explained. The first stage is when you do a jump in. You can see the filia, like you can see the combo stage go to 1. So that is your first thing. The second would be a ground string, so that's IPS 2. It goes from 1, 2. So you can see that. Uh, maybe this makes a lot more sense when people can see the transition a little bit easier. So you go, then and then you do a thing, and when you launch somebody, you once you launch somebody, you get IPS 3. IPS 3 is basically your first launch, and when you air dash cancel something, you get IPS 4. Or if you do a cancel like Parasol, he was the was talking about. Um, Anytime you do your launch and then you air dash cancel something, that counts as IPS 4. The easiest way to see this would be, what would it be actually? Like that. Like that would be a 3 to 4 thing, and IPS did not trigger in the middle of this. That's how it works. And then as soon as you land, you get IPS 5. IPS 5 is the main thing you want to be looking for because one, all your this is when burst trigger happens. This is when you can trigger bursts. Like how can I show this? Like I had already used crouching light kick, and then when it triggered IPS, you see that it's white, so that's the button that triggered IPS. Uh, I'll just have that over here, not dropping any frames. That's pretty good. I might use this setting to stream. So let me explain this. That's the basic gist of it. Basically, when you go, that's IPS 1, that's IPS 2, your ground string. And then you launch somebody that's IPS 3 to 4. For some characters, it's just 3, like Big Band, who doesn't really have any air cancels. So he just does an IPS 3 string in the air. And then when you land from your first launch is when you do an IPS 5 string. IPS 5 is where um, IPS 5 is where you can trigger bursts, and this is when bursts happen basically. So you need to be a little bit more strict. The way I so this is now that's the basics of it. The complicated part is when you look at different strings and how they affect IPS. So an example of this would be that did not trigger IPS because the heavy punch was from 3 to 4. But if you do a that was a burst bait because then you were at IPS 5 and the game saw the heavy punch cancel heavy punch as two strings. But you had so okay. When you do the OTG and then you do this, when you do the first heavy punch, that gets recorded in the IPS and you're at stage 5 right now. But then when you air dash cancel and do a second heavy punch, that counts as a separate chain because of how IPS works, and then the game goes, oh wait, you had already used heavy punch, so it triggers a burst. It triggers a burstable state. Because it was a burst bait, it can't. Because you weren't in a position to be bursted, that counts as a burst bait, and that's how burst baits work. That's the basic gist of that. IPS 1 to 3 when you do a jump cancel. How do I show this? Yeah. Like, so what I did right there was I did, as my first starter, I did heavy dash, heavy kick, jumping heavy kick, air dash, jumping heavy punch, heavy kick. That makes it so that the starter is from just IPS 1, which is this. When you see this, that's just an IPS 1 starter because that's just one jumping heavy kick. But when you look at an air dash cancel or any sort of cancel string, that turns it into a special, I suppose, starter because it's now an IPS 3 starter. You know? Because now I'll explain how this combo works. That's at this point you're in IPS. Technically, you're supposed to be at IPS 3, but you're at IPS 2. But like the first string is a special string, so at this point, all your buttons will start to count because it's a special string. Anytime you involve some sort of a cancel in a string, it becomes this special string. So you're like, okay, it's kind of actually hard to do this for me. I don't do this very often. So when you have done all of that, your heavy punch and heavy kick have been counted. Your jumping heavy punch and heavy kick have been counted because ground and air normals differ. So you do that. So your heavy punch and heavy kick can be counted the next time you do them at the end of, say, that was a brush bait because that triggered IPS because you had already used a jumping heavy kick because you were doing this special starter into the same thing over and over again. So it counted as, oh, this is an IPS, you need to not do this anymore. I don't know how much sense this makes, and I'm kind of tired right now still, but I wanted to do this partially because I wanted to see if my stream lags or not, and I haven't dropped any frames, so I'm pretty happy about that. I can run some games if people wanted to do that, and I could see if I didn't drop any frames anymore, which would be awesome. And also if I didn't drop my frame rate. But in general, that's pretty much like IPS in a nutshell. There are specific things that depend on characters that I can kind of show some little bit examples of. What would be a great example of this? Penguin would be great. Um, I'm actually gonna pick the voice pack Pinwheel because I hate myself. And I'll pick Beowulf because why not? So when IPS, when Pinwheel does a jumping heavy medium punch confirm, she does uh, what? So you see what happened over here was that if I just did jump medium punch or jump medium punch or medium kick, I don't know if I can really do that. I'll get him to jump. I'll do like if you do like a chain in the air like this. That's just like one two button. You just kind of dial it like this. That's fine because that's just IPS 1. But when you've done a special cancel like this, which is jump medium punch into fly into jump medium kick, that was pretty bad. Like stuff like that into ah ah like stuff like that. That's pretty much as good as it goes for me for Painwheel. I'm not very good at Painwheel combos. But like because you did a special starter right there, which is a medium punch into fly, so you did a special cancel and then you did jump medium kick. That counts as a special starter, and then all your ground buttons will be tracked after this. Do keep in mind that this is still IPS 3, and your ground shell will not cause a burst, so you can you can still keep doing your combo, but at okay, so like you will be at IPS 3. Uh, how IPS relates to undizzy is also a relatively complicated topic, kind of. IPS will start to build when you're in stages 3, 4, and 5, but will not IPS, sorry, undizzy will only start to build when you're in stages 3, 4, and 5, but you will only be able to burst a combo if you are at IPS 5. So this special starter, I should pick something better that I can like actually do consistently. Let me see if I can think of something real quick. Oh yeah, this is pretty easy. Like when you look at this starter, okay, that's also a pretty good example of everything. So when you did your special starter, you turned into IPS 3, and then you landed, and you were still in IPS 3. But when you did now, you were at IPS 5. Let me show you. So you were. It's pretty hard to look at it because it went by so quick. But you were at IPS 5 during the after you did the fiber upper. So because you were at IPS stage 5, the game gets a little bit more strict with checking the IPS, and I mean not really. It just like it starts to trigger burst at that point. So the game goes, okay, you hit heavy punch in the air, but then you air dash cancel jump heavy punch again. So the game's like, wait, this is a second string, but you already used heavy punch, so burst, and then that's a burst, and then I mean that's pretty much it. And because of this, the if you're at high, this also relates to undizzy in this way, in that if you're at full undizzy, any string that you do, if your opponent is above 240, it will cause a burst if you're in IPS 5. So let me show you. All of this was fine because you were at IPS 4, and when you landed, you were at IPS 5. So normally you would be able to do this combo. Blah blah blah, and then you can do that. That's still fine, but at high undizzy, sorry, because you're at IPS 5 and you have more than 240 undizzy and you start to do a new string, the combo would be burstable. See, she could burst out of that. So that is how undizzy and IPS kind of relate to each other in a video that is entirely too long. But I wanted to do it as an explanation and partially just to check my streaming quality. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna maybe stop unless people want to play, but I'll train mode in the meanwhile. I'll stop in like 15 minutes if people don't want to play.